All right. So we have seen the topic of Jiva Vichara. So we have seen the Shariratrayam, the Jiva personality, the individual as the three bodies, the Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharira. Then we have seen the Avasthatrayam, the Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti Avastha. And finally, the same Shariratrayam, we have seen the same individual personality in its functional division as the Pancha Kosha. The Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha and Anandamaya Kosha. So we have seen these, we have analyzed the individual and we have seen the Shariratrayam or the Pancha Koshas. And we saw that these Pancha Koshas or the Shariratrayam, that is made up of the Pancha Mahabhutas. So it is Bhautika Sharira. Correct? We have seen that. After analyzing that, we entered the topic of Atma. Okay? And so far, what is the development that we have seen in understanding the Atma? So firstly, we started with any matter or material, okay, anything that is bhautika, that is made of the elements, the Pancha Mahabhutas. So anything that is matter or material that is inert in nature. That is the first step that we saw. And what does inert mean? Inert means something that is achetan, insentient, that is inert. So Shastra explains inert or achetan as something which is neither Chaitanya Gunakam nor Chaitanya Janakam. So inert is something that is not Chaitanya Gunakam, means sentiency is not a property or attribute of that object, nor is it Chaitanya Janakam, means it cannot even produce sentience, it cannot even produce Chaitanya, Chaitanya Tattva. It cannot produce, it does not even have Chaitanya Tattva as its guna. So that kind of object or that kind of material is called inert, which is neither Chaitanya Gunakam nor Chaitanya Janakam. And in our study of the individual, we have seen that Shariratrayam is also matter. It is made up of the Panchamahabhutas. It is made up of these elements. Hence, it is bhautika. It is material in nature. And hence, we concluded that Shariratrayam is also inert. It is achetan. So logically, we reached to this conclusion that since Shariratrayam is also made up of matter, Shariratrayam is insentient. It is achetan. That is the first step that we reached logically. Now we say that ठीक है, logically we reached this step, but experientially what do we see? Experientially we see that the Shariratrayam is totally conscious, right? There is, the Shariratrayam is Chaitanya. Wherever we pinch, we feel the pinch, right? So we feel that the body is conscious, the Sthula Shariram. Even our thoughts, we know that our mind is also conscious. It is Chetan, right? It is not inert. It is not insentient. But since logically we have proved that the Shariratrayam is inert, it is achetan, but experientially we are seeing that it is sentient. So both these opposites have to reconcile, no? So then we reach the conclusion that this is because the Shariratrayam borrows consciousness from someone, from something, from some entity. We had given that example of a woman who does not possess anything and we see her with all fancy clothes and jewelry and all. So we conclude that it is borrowed from someone, borrowed from somewhere. So the next conclusion, the next corollary that we draw is that the Shariratrayam borrows consciousness from some entity. And that entity, that principle is what we call Atma. Okay? So the individual personality has 4 factors. Until now, we had seen the 3 anatma factors, okay? The 3 inert factors. That is the Sthula Shariram, Sukshma Shariram, and the Karana Shariram. But we saw that there is a 4th factor, the Turiya. That is Atma. That is the consciousness principle. It gives consciousness to these 3 inert factors of the human, of the individual personality. The 3 ancient, achetan, anatma factors of the jiva's personality are enlivened by this consciousness principle, which we call Atma. So hence, a very important fact to remember is we as a jiva are a combination. We are a mixture of anatma and atma. So anatma is the shariratrayam or the panchakosha, and atma, the consciousness principle underlying this shariratrayam, which enlivens, which gives sentiency to this shariratrayam. So we also call it, we call the anatma as matter or energy, even energy of mind, thoughts, all that energy. So matter and energy both are same only. It's just the differences in the form. So matter and energy both fall in the anatma group only. Okay. So matter plus spirit is anatma plus atma. So we are a combination of these 2, anatma plus atma. Right? So we have seen up to this point so far. Right.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
You have mentioned about Natma and Atma. So matter in living beings and matter in the dead, like stones and like this. So what is
the difference? Right.
There has to be difference.
Very, very important question, and we are coming to that only, Hitarthji. So if you will just, by the end of the class, this will be absolutely clear to you. Okay, we are coming to that.
Okay, thank you.
Very important question. So now we have understood. Okay, so now we have to see that how does this thing actually work? So how do these 3 inert sharirams, how do they borrow consciousness? जैसे bulb और electricity में last time हमने example लिया था, right? That the electricity which is underlying the bulbs or tube lights or whatever, that enlivens, that makes the bulb glow, right? The electricity is invisible, whereas the bulb and its filament is visible. So that enlivens the bulb. That is what we had seen, right? तो वो example में तो एकदम easily समझता है कि electricity is passing through the wires, through the conduits, and when the bulb comes in contact with that electricity, that is when the bulb lights up. But what about the Atma? How does the Atma enliven these 3 bodies? I see no wires or conduits that is supplying consciousness, right? So the answer to that is Atma is underlying all the jivas in the world. Atma is all pervading, means it is everywhere. it is over, it is under, it is inside, it is outside, it is within. So basically, it is in and through everything, just like space. Okay. This is an excellent example given by the Shastra, space or akasha. So space does not mean out, like we are not just talking about outer space, space as in jaga, space. So space is everywhere. Okay. Is room mein space hai, like even like outside the room there is space. In the cupboard there is space. If there is a pot, there is space. If there is space inside, there is outside. Space is everywhere. Okay. So it is relatively all pervading. So all pervading means sarva vyapi. Sarva vyapakatvam is kind of difficult to comprehend, hai na? So Shastra gives this example of space. So when we think of space, we can kind of visualize what is all pervading, right? What is sarva vyapakatva. So say there is space over here. Us space ke andar, if I have put a chair, okay, then the space will be underlying a chair also, right? It will be the substratum of chair also, no? ऐसा नहीं है कि space को हटा के हमने chair रख दिया. जैसे in case, so if there is water, okay, and if you place something, water gets displaced and something gets put there. Even in case of air, air gets displaced and something gets put over there. But in case of space, it is so subtle that it underlies everything that is there. If you put a table or a pot or a house or a person in space, again, the space is still there, right? It is underlying everything that is there. So space is pervading everything. It is in and through everything that is there, right? Space is underlying even the oceans and the rivers and the mountains and everything. So mentally, just empty the oceans. Okay? Just imagine, just visualize that the oceans are empty. So kya hai udhar? You will be able to visualize the space. Fill it up again. And you will be able to visualize the same space as the substratum of that water of the oceans also. Adhisthana. Samajh raha hai? Is it clear? How space is all pervading? It is the substratum of everything. Jaise is jagah pe, okay, if you put a box, okay, if you put a box in the space, then you will be able to get it more clearly. There is space in the box. There is space around the box. There is space even in the walls, even where the walls of the box are. Right? So space is totally pervading the box and even around the box. And that is how Atma is. Atma is all pervading. It is underlying, it is in and through the entire universe. That is how Atma is. And now your question, 𝐒𝐻𝐼𝐺𝐺. It is a very important question that arises that, so if this Atma, okay, this consciousness is all pervading, it is in and through the entire universe, then why is everything not sentient? Why is everything not Chetan? Why are only jivas sentient? So why is this table or this chair, this cupboard, why are they not sentient? Why is a clay statue or a doll not sentient? And why are only we jivas sentient? So the reason for that is, although this Atma, it is consciousness itself, but it cannot do anything on its own. it requires a medium to manifest that consciousness. Okay, very important to understand this. Atma, although it is consciousness itself, but it requires a medium to manifest that consciousness. That means it needs a correct medium to manifest that consciousness in the body. So a correct medium is required to make this chaitanyam, this chetana vyakt in the shariram. Although it is underlying the shariram, although it is underlying the clay statue as well as a human being, the same consciousness principle is underlying, but it requires a correct medium to for that Chaitanya Tattvam, for that Chaitanyam to be vyakt, to be manifested. And that correct medium is the mind. It is the antakaranam. Okay, mind does not mean only the manaha. Okay, when we say mind, it means the antakaranam, all the four faculties. It is the mind, it is this antakaranam which is the medium that makes the manifestation of the consciousness possible. The manifestation of the chetana, of the chaitanyam, that is possible, and that makes the jiva chetan or sentient. Whereas the table, the chair, the clay statue, they do not have this manifesting medium. They do not have the antakaranam, right? And therefore, they are insentient. I always give this very crude but very effective example. Say there is electricity, okay? And electricity is connected to the body of a fan. Okay, the body of the fan is there and it is properly connected to the electricity. Okay. Just like the Atma, how it is underlying the body. Atma is underlying the body. That way, electricity is also connected to the body of the fan. So, there is electricity. It is connected to the body of the fan. But the problem is, we have removed the motor from the body of the fan. So there is only this body, blades are there, the rod is there, but the motor we have removed. There is no motor. Now will the fan work? No, right? Because even though electricity is there, and electricity is connected also with the body of the fan, but the medium that converts electricity into the mechanical energy of the rotation of the fan, that medium itself is absent. The motor itself is absent. So although electricity is there with all its power, electricity is present, yet electricity by itself cannot rotate the fan. No, it cannot rotate the body of the fan. So the fan is not working in spite of the presence of electricity because the medium of manifestation is absent. The medium of manifestation, which is the motor, that is missing. Now you understand what we mean by medium. Is this clear? Can someone answer?
Yes.
So now that aspect is clear. Why, when you say table, chair, rocks, why are they not sentient in spite of the Atma underlying them also? So, same way, Atma itself, like the electricity, Atma itself is akarta abhokta. It cannot do anything. Although it is consciousness itself, consciousness, Chaitanyam is its nature, that is its inherent nature. Yet it requires the medium called antakaranam to reflect or manifest that consciousness, that sentiency in the jivas, in the body And that's when they become jivas. And when we say Atma is akarta abhokta, I just want to very briefly explain what it means. Shastra talks a lot about this, so when you study in detail, it will seep in even more. But for now, I'm just explaining it briefly so that you don't wonder that, oh, how Atma is giving sentiency, and still we are saying that Atma is akarta. How can Atma be akarta? It is giving sentiency. It is doing the job of giving, right? So, aisa nahi hai. So just like, see, you have mirrors in your house, right? Now, the mirror on the wall, it is reflecting your form. And it is reflecting the form 24/7. Subah se raat se subah tak, 365 days a year. It is constantly reflecting the form. But although it is doing that job, it is apparently doing that job of reflecting the form, but it is not an action done, okay? It is only by its mere presence that the form gets reflected. It is not willfully doing an action, okay? The action just happens by its mere presence. नहीं तो क्या होगा, like दोपहर होते होते, शाम होते होते, mirror will be like, oh my god, I'm tired, I'm working since morning, I'm doing this action of, like, if we do activities throughout the day, there is a change in us, no? A vikara happens, right? Any action being done, a vikara happens. We lose energy, or we gain heat, or something like that. Some kind of vikara happens. But does the mirror lose any energy? Does it gain any weight or anything? No action is being done. That is called being akarta abhokta. By, like, just like that, by its mere presence, the Atma enlivens the body. It doesn't act, it's just by its mere presence. By the mere presence of the mirror, our form gets reflected because of the nature of the mirror. Same way, by the mere presence of the Atma, we get sentient because of the nature of the Atma, and of course, because we possess the reflecting medium, the manifesting medium, that is the Antakarana. Itna tak clear?
I have one question.
Yes.
You have mentioned about space. So the space in this material world, in specifically on Earth planet,
Okay.
and space in between the galaxies, there is a difference, right? Like.
Yeah, tell me how.
So the difference is, like, as we know that there is air on Earth, but
yeah, in the Earth atmosphere, right?
So what is the difference?
Hitarthji, there is air, okay, in the Earth's atmosphere, if we say, but air occupies space. So underlying the air, there is space only. And if you say there is vacuum outside, okay, there is vacuum, but there is space, right? There is nothing in that space, hence we say there is vacuum, but there is space.
Okay, so that also has the, it also considered as Atman.
Correct.
Yeah.
All pervading Atma, it occupies that space also, like the space. But the only difference between the sarva vyapakatvam of space and Atma is that the space has Atma as its adhishthanam also. Understood? सब चीज अंदर है, सब चीज, like any object, any being that you consider, it is in space, in some space, right? It is, if this is in this space, if this room, if this building is in a space, if even the planet Earth is in a space, right? But wo space is also having Atma as its substratum. Understood? The Atma is so all-pervading, it is underlying space also. So space that we see, Akasha, as an element, it is relatively all-pervading, but it has Atma as its substratum, as its adhishthanam. If this you haven't understood, like the space part and the Atma part in that context, it's okay for now. But you understood how space is all-pervading. And in the same way, how Atma is all-pervading. That much you have understood?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So let's go ahead. So this Atma, okay, this Atma, this consciousness principle, we call it the original consciousness. Okay, just remember these terms, because in lot of explanation ahead, even further when you will go in more text, these terms will come. Okay, so Atma, we call it original consciousness, OC, original consciousness. It is the consciousness principle that enlivens everything. So we call the Atma as original consciousness. And we call the mind, the Antakaranam, as the reflecting medium. Why? Because the mind reflects this original consciousness, no? We said that mind is the manifesting medium. It is the reflecting medium that reflects the original consciousness. And the consciousness which is reflected by the mind, okay, that consciousness which is reflected by the mind, which is seen as sentiency or chetna in living beings, that sentiency, that consciousness is called reflected consciousness. So Atma is the original consciousness. The mind is the reflecting medium. It reflects this original consciousness. And the reflected consciousness, which is seen as sentiency in all living beings, that is called reflected consciousness. It is not the original consciousness, it is reflected consciousness, or it is also called Chidabhasa. Chidabhasa, okay, this word Chidabhasa is made up of two words, Chit and Abhasa. Chit means Chaitanya, Chit means pure consciousness, but this reflected consciousness is not pure Chit, it is not pure Chaitanya, it is Chit Abhasa, means it is the Chit, it is the consciousness which is associated with the Jiva. It is the consciousness which is reflected through the mind. It is an Abhasa, it is a Pratibimba, it is a reflection. Just say when you look in the mirror, okay, you are the original object. You are called the Bimba, the original object. Then the mirror is the reflecting medium. Correct? And what the reflection of yourself, of the original object, the Bimba, that you see in the mirror, the reflection of the original object is called the Pratibimba, right? The reflection, that is the reflected object. It is not the original object. It is the reflected object which is reflected by the reflecting medium. Ab samjha? With this example, are you able to see what is original consciousness, the reflecting medium, and the reflected consciousness? the original object, the mirror, which is the reflecting medium, and the reflection that you see in the mirror. Samjha?
Yes.
All right. So these three terms you have to remember: original consciousness, reflecting medium, and reflected consciousness. Now let us take one example that will make things very clear. So all of you can just close your eyes and let us imagine the sun. Okay, the sun, the bright shining sun in a clear sky. Now let us call this sun as the original object, like the original consciousness. Just say Atma, we said original consciousness. So we are just visualizing the sun as an original object. Now imagine a tub of water. एक tub है, उसमें clear water is filled, still water. Now, in that tub filled with water, you are seeing a clear reflection of the sun. Can you visualize this whole picture? Okay, we are seeing the reflection of the sun on the surface of the water in a tub of water. Yeah, this slide will help you. So here what happens, this surface of the water, that is the reflecting medium. The sun that you see, the original sun that we said, it's the original sun. And the sun that you see in the surface of on the surface of the water, okay, that is the reflected object. It is the pratibimba of the sun. It is not the original sun. It is the pratibimba of the sun. It is the reflected object. So original sun is the bimba and the reflected sun is the pratibimba. And the surface of the water is what? It is the reflecting medium. Now, in your visualization, just replace the sun with the Atma or original consciousness, the consciousness principle, the Atma. The surface of the water, you replace it with the mind. And the reflection of the sun that you see on that surface of the water, you replace it with reflected consciousness, which is the consciousness associated with the jiva. Here, the sun became the Atma, the original consciousness. The surface of the water, the reflecting medium, became the mind, the reflecting medium. And the reflection of the sun became the reflected consciousness. Now in this scene, imagine that if the water is not there, okay, tub hai, lekin pani nahi hai usme, sun bhi hai. So even though the sun is present, even though the tub is there, will the sun's reflection be there if the water is not there? In the same way, if the mind, the reflecting medium is not there, then even though the Atma is there, Atma which is all pervading, it is there, even though the tub is there, still it cannot manifest that sentiency. The way the reflection of the sun is not seen only, same way the reflected consciousness will not be there only because the reflecting medium is not there. So although the Atma, the original consciousness, is all pervading, it is underlying everything in this universe, yet it is the mind or the antakaranam that alone can reflect the consciousness of the Atma. And only then the jivas, the object becomes conscious with that reflected consciousness, which we said It is the Chidabhasa. Okay, this is a very, very important understanding. Okay, original consciousness, reflecting medium, reflected consciousness. And remember this example of this tub and the sun. It will help us further when we go ahead in our study. तो अब समझ में आया ना कि हम क्यों सेंशिएंट है और ये टेबल क्यों सेंशिएंट नहीं है. Even though Atma, the consciousness principle, is underlying everything, it is underlying the table also, yet only we are sentient and the table, chair, all these objects do not have sentiency. Okay. Now, some more imagination to be done. Huh? Now, instead of the same tub wala example, the sun is there, the tub is there, tub is filled with water. Now, instead of one tub filled with water, imagine that there are lots of tubs filled with water on this bright sunny day. Thousands of tubs or millions of tubs. So, there is only one sun, the original source, the original object, right? There is only one sun, no? And that sun is reflected by the reflecting medium of all these different tubs. है ना? जो पहला टब है, उसके वाटर के सरफेस में जो सन का रिफ्लेक्शन दिख रहा है, that is the reflection of the original sun. Okay? दूसरे टब के वाटर सरफेस में भी सन का ही रिफ्लेक्शन दिख रहा है, ओरिजिनल सन का. वैसे तीसरे, चौथे, 100th, 1000th, millionth टब के वाटर सरफेस में भी वही ओरिजिनल सन का रिफ्लेक्शन दिख रहा है. करेक्ट? So we see millions and millions of different reflected suns on millions of different water surfaces. But these millions of reflections are the reflection of the one and only original sun. Correct? ये visualize हो रहा है? Is this clear that only one sun is getting reflected in these millions of tubs which we have filled with water? वैसे ही one Atma, the original consciousness, the all-pervading consciousness principle, it is apparently seen as millions of different reflected consciousnesses. I mean, consciousnesses, I don't know whether it is a word also, but just for explaining, it is that original consciousness of the Atma which is seen as millions of different reflected consciousnesses in millions of different jivas. Just like millions of tubs filled with water reflect the original sun, right? जैसे millions of different reflection दिख रहे हैं sun के, वैसे ही millions of different reflected consciousnesses हमको इतने सारे different jivas में दिख रहे हैं. They are just the pratibimba, the reflection of the original consciousness. तो तुम्हारा कॉन्शियसनेस, मेरा कॉन्शियसनेस, बिन लादेन का कॉन्शियसनेस, गांधी जी का कॉन्शियसनेस, स्वामी विवेकानंद का कॉन्शियसनेस, व्लादिमीर पुतिन का कॉन्शियसनेस, सबका कॉन्शियसनेस इज जस्ट द रिफ्लेक्शन of this one and only original consciousness. This reflected consciousness is called the Chidabhasa. Like I said, it is not pure Chit. It is not the original consciousness. It is not the original Atma, but it is the consciousness which is reflected through the mind. It is an abhasa. It is a pratibimba. It is a reflection. So now have we clearly grasped what is OC, RM and RC? OC, the original consciousness, the Atma, the consciousness principle, that is OC, original consciousness. RM, the reflecting medium, which is our antakaranam. The antakaranam is borrowing and reflecting sentiency, and that is what is making the jivas sentient. So that is the reflecting medium or the manifesting medium, the antakaranam, which we call the RM, reflecting medium. And the RC, the reflected consciousness, the consciousness that we see, ki, oh, I am a conscious being, the cow is a conscious being, you are a conscious being. That is reflected consciousness. Now, please tell me if this is understood clearly or not. Because if this is understood clearly, then it is a huge deal. It is really great. It's awesome. So, please tell me.
Yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes.
All right. Very good. So, very, very important aspect. Okay, there is some question.
Yes, yes.
Namaste, ma'am.
Namaste, Deepak ji. Is this clear? Ke doubts?
कुछ है डाउट्स, फिर एक बार देखना पड़ेगा मैम. लेकिन मुझे ये पूछना था, मतलब आत्मा अनेक नहीं है, आत्मा एक है.
Absolutely.
इसका मतलब यही हुआ ना?
Absolutely correct. जैसे हमने देखा सन एक ही है, जो दिख रहा है वो डिफरेंट टब्स के अंदर रिफ्लेक्शन दिख रहा है. तो इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि सन अलग अलग है. रिफ्लेक्टिंग मीडियम्स अलग अलग है, माइंड्स अलग अलग है. जैसे अलग अलग टब्स में अलग अलग वो सरफेस ऑफ वाटर पे रिफ्लेक्शन दिख रहा है, वैसे आत्मा एक ही है, लेकिन इतने सारे जितने शरीर त्रयम है उतने रिफ्लेक्टिंग मीडियम्स है ना, उतने अंतकरण है ना, तो उतना रिफ्लेक्शन आ रहा है. इसके लिए अलग अलग दिख रहा है. अपेरेंटली इट इज जस्ट सीइंग एज डिफरेंट कॉन्शियसनेसेस, बट इट इज जस्ट वन सिंगल कॉन्शियसनेस प्रिंसिपल.
रिफ्लेक्टिंग और रिफ्लेक्टेड जो बोल रहे थे आप, दो चीजें, इसको थोड़ा और क्लियर कीजिए ना.
So it's the same thing. Reflecting medium जिसको हम बोल रहे हैं, जैसे मिरर है, that is a reflecting medium. The surface of the water in a tub, that is the reflecting medium.
Okay.
So
और जो रिफ्लेक्शन बन रहा है वो रिफ्लेक्टेड बोल रहे हैं उसको आप.
हाँ, जो रिफ्लेक्शन बन रहा है वो रिफ्लेक्टेड कॉन्शियसनेस है, जिसे हम चिदाभास बोल रहे हैं. वो ओरिजिनल चित्त नहीं है, वो चित्त का आभास है. इट्स अ प्रतिबिंब.
Got it, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes. So now let us understand this Atma furthermore. ठीक है. So last class में we had said that consciousness, जो हम अभी तक consciousness, sentiency, चित्त, चैतन्य जो हम बोल रहे हैं, we have seen that that is just one aspect of Atma. The nature of Atma has two more inherent aspects also. हम हमेशा क्या बोलते हैं? सच्चिद आनंद आत्मा. क्या बोलते हैं? सच्चित आनंद स्वरूप. आत्मा is सत चित आनंद स्वरूप. Right? तो अभी तक हम क्या देख रहे थे? The चित्त स्वरूप of Atma. The Chaitanya Swarupa of Atma. But now we are saying that Atma is also Sat Swarupa and Atma is also Ananda Swarupa. It is also, this Sat Chit Ananda Swarupa is also called Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam Swarupa. So Jnanam or Chit or Chaitanya, that means pure consciousness, the original consciousness जो हम बोल रहे हैं, that is the inherent aspect, inherent nature of Atma. वो हमने देखा. तो सत्यम क्या है? ये था चित, चैतन्यम और ज्ञानम. तो सत और सत्यम, that is pure existence. जैसे pure consciousness देखा, वैसे pure existence. We'll understand, we'll look into it in great detail. Don't worry if you don't understand right now. Just mark these words, okay? Note them. कि सत और सत्यम, जब हम बोलते हैं सत चित आनंद स्वरूप, आत्मा क्या है? सत चित आनंद स्वरूप. तो सत और सत्यम, that means pure existence, and anandam or anantam, that means it is purna, complete, full, or infinite. Okay, purna or infinite, that means anantam or anandam. So this definition of Atma, it's a bit subtle, okay? Therefore, as a beginner, we might find it a little difficult to comprehend. But thoda patience rakh ke in the coming 6-7 classes that are left for us, we'll make sure that we completely understand this aspect. Okay, so and because this topic is so volatile and abstract, it will evaporate. So my earnest request that please do mananam on this Atma topic. Okay, try and revisit the classes, revisit your notes, because otherwise it will go away. So mananam is very important on this topic. And again, because this topic is so subtle, Upanishads themselves, they give 2 analogies, 2 examples to make this abstract concept of Atma clear. So Upanishads say that Atma or Chaitanyam, the consciousness principle, they compare it to light. Light, Prakash, and the other analogy that the Upanishads give is space, Akash. So space ka to already humne dekha, how that analogy, it makes this all pervading, sarva vyapakatvam, to understand it, it makes it very easy, right? So Upanishad takes these 2 examples, Akasha and Prakasha. Akasha means space and Prakasha means light. So they are the closest that come to being an example for explaining Atma. So now we'll take this analogy of light, Prakasha, and we'll understand this. First, we'll again understand the Chitta aspect only, okay, consciousness aspect only, taking this example of light. It will become much more clearer. The nature, the features of the Atma, the features of this consciousness will become much more clear when we will use this example of light, Prakash. Okay. So this consciousness principle, it is like the light principle which we experience. It is such a beautiful example because there are so many common features between Chaitanyam and Prakasha. So consciousness and light, they have so many common features. So that will help us grasp this understanding of Atma better. Okay. So firstly, see, we find that light is that one principle which spreads over every object. Correct? Every object, we experience it or we see it, it is only and only because of light. If there is no light, we cannot see any object. So when I'm seeing or experiencing, say, a book, okay. So when I'm seeing this book, okay, then what happens? It is, I can see this book only because the book, it is pervaded by, or it is spread over by a beam of light from some light source, right? Light in the form of a beam or a ray, it spreads over any object, and because of that alone, I'm able to see that object. So when I'm seeing the book, okay, when I'm seeing the book, I am actually experiencing 2 things. I am experiencing the book, and along with that, I am experiencing the light also, which falls over the book, which spreads over the book. So there are two things, book plus light, right? There are two things, no, over here, book and light. But because it is there all the time, we tend to ignore it. We tend to take it for granted. And not only when I'm experiencing this book, when I'm experiencing any other object, okay? Any other object, pen, le lo, table, chair, phone, any object, when I'm experiencing it, it is a mixture of that object plus the light that falls over it. Correct? Right? Is this like we tend to see it as a single experience that, okay, this is just a pen. But in reality, it is a double experience. We are experiencing the pen also, and we are experiencing the light also, which is falling on it. ये हम कभी notice भी नहीं करते हैं. Whenever I show you a pen or a book and I ask you कि ये क्या है, so you will immediately say that this is a pen. You will never say that this is pen and light. You always miss out on this light which is falling on it, because of which you are able to see the pen, because of which you are able to see the book. That aspect we always miss. So the light is an ever experienced principle. हमेशा हम उसे experience करते हैं, because of which every object is experienced. समझा? Light is ever experienced. Okay? And not only is this light ever experienced, means always experienced, but it is only because of this light alone that every object is experienced, that every object I am able to see. Therefore, the uniqueness of light is that it is an ever experienced cause of every experience. Here, ever experienced cause of every experience. ये समझ रहा है? I am able to see light all the time. I'm able to see light all the time. So it is ever experienced. I experience it all the time. Not only is it ever experienced, but it is the ever experienced cause of every experience. Means I am able to see any object only because of the presence of light. So the light is ever experienced by me, and it is the cause of every experience that I get. And because it is ever experienced, that is why we always take it for granted. कभी notice भी नहीं करते हैं. So when I ask you what is here, you will say there is a pen, there is a book, there is a painting, there is a table, chair, curtains, whatever. You will mention everything, but you take for granted the experience of the light, because of which alone you are experiencing the book, table, chair, curtains, paintings, everything, because of that light only. But still we miss out on that. So Swamiji says that we take the experience of light very lightly, and it should not be taken that lightly. So it is the ever experienced cause of every experience. And in the same way, the Upanishads say that I am a conscious being, I am a conscious human being, I am Chetan. It is an ever experienced fact. At no time I feel that I am inert. क्या हमें कभी भी ऐसे फील होता है कि नहीं मैं तो जड़ हूं, मैं जड़ वस्तु हूं, I am inert, I am insentient? No. Throughout the day, I experience that I am a conscious being. Right now, I'm conscious that I'm talking to you. Before that, maybe I was conscious that I was eating. Later, I will be conscious that I'm reading, or I'm talking over the phone, or I'm taking a walk. So what I am conscious of, that varies. Matlab, the thing that I am conscious of, that keeps changing. But the fact that I am conscious, that is invariable, no? It is a continuously, constantly experienced fact. First, I was conscious of something else, then something else, then something else. So what I was conscious of, or what I am conscious of, that keeps changing. But what remains unchanging? The fact that I am conscious, that fact remains unchanging, no? मैंने कंफ्यूज कर दिया कि ये समझ में आ रहा है कि the things that we are conscious of, right now I am conscious of this book, then I'm conscious of this pen, then I'm conscious that, oh, I'm talking to you, then I'm conscious that, oh, okay, it's already way past our time. So I am conscious of something or the other. मैं क्या चीज के लिए conscious हूँ, वो चीज change होती जाती है, पर मैं conscious हूँ, ये चीज कभी change नहीं होती. That is a constant. So the scriptures say that consciousness or chaitanyam is an ever experienced fact in the form of I am a conscious being. Right? It is not only that it is an ever experienced fact, but it is because of this consciousness alone that I am having every other experience. Anything that I experience, the book, the pen, the table, even my pleasures, my sorrow, my anger, my hunger, the pain, everything that I experience that only because I am conscious. Only because of this consciousness principle. Only because of this chetana. Only because of this chaitanya which is present. Correct? इस चैतन्य, इस चेतना के वजह से ही I am able to experience everything else. That means I'm constantly experiencing this chetana also, no? Whenever I'm experiencing anything, I am experiencing this chetana. So I know that this chaitanya, this consciousness is present at all times. All the variable experiences, all the changing experiences are possible only because of this invariable, unchanging consciousness. Because of the continuous experience of the fact that I am a conscious being. It is because of that fact that I'm able to experience everything else. Okay, I am conscious that we are beyond our time, but just give me 1 minute, okay? So now we can understand this. We can understand consciousness as the ever experienced cause of every experience. I'm always constantly experiencing consciousness. Therefore, it is ever experienced, right? कभी भी ऐसे नहीं है कि I feel that I'm jada, I am inert, I'm insane. I am constantly experiencing consciousness. So it is ever experienced. And then they say it is an ever experienced cause of every experience. It is the karana, it is the reason because of which I am experiencing everything. If I did not have consciousness, I would not be able to experience this pen. It is because of the consciousness. Consciousness is the cause for every experience that I get. Just as we saw earlier, that the light principle, it is the ever experienced cause of every experience. Similarly, consciousness is the ever experienced cause of every experience. So this is one common feature between the light principle and the consciousness principle. Oof, clear? Is it clear? If it is clear, we'll conclude here and we'll go to the next common features of the light and consciousness, and we'll look at the chit and all that next class. The Sat and Ananda aspects in the next class. Any questions, any doubts? All right, I am so happy that this part is clear, because this is very, very, very important. Okay, so we'll end here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you, everybody. Namaste.